Can you move that screen over?
Oh, yeah. We are live.
Oh, didn't know. Hi, everyone. I'm Margaret Schaus.
I'm Brandon Tessers. Welcome. Oh, we are both licensed therapists, but this is not therapy for very, very many reasons. This is not therapy hour. This is an open conversation. Margaret and I are talking with one another and with all of you. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you are, what you might be interested in, how we're coming across to you, how we're impacting you, and so on. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us a lot more information to base those guesses on about who you are and what you're interested in and so on. We work with it. We do our best to read those comments off. Oh wait, last week you said you wanted to do it.
I know, but now I'm in my head now.
I
So I was second. I know, and now it's halfway through.
Just grabbing a fidget here. We do our best to read out the comments as they come in because we're streaming on 3 different platforms at the same time, and each of you will only see chat comments that come in from that platform. So if you're on Facebook, you'll only see comments from Facebook. So we try to read them out as we go along so that everybody's on the same page. We work with a private therapy practice located in Northbrook, Illinois. Our physical office is in Northbrook, Illinois. We do individual, couples, family, and group therapy with individuals in the states of Illinois and Wisconsin. We also work with some coaches who can work with people all over the world via the internet. All of the coaches are executive functioning coaches, but they each have their own additional specialties on top of that: parenting, business, creativity / artistry, whatever.
You got it all.
Is that everything?
Yep.
Okay.
The checklist is complete in my head. You got everything.
We're using a different setup technology-wise this week, so hopefully I spend some time making sure to the best of my ability that it's all working properly, so hopefully that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
If something goes off with our video or our sound, please let us know. I'm going to just double check and make sure we've got the right microphone. So
Okay.
Accidentally muted us there.
Okay.
But yeah, if anything goes off with the video or sound, let us know. Hopefully, it's hard to tell on our end given the location, but hopefully the new video should be more crisp, not as pixelated and so on.
It kind of looks like that more.
It does. I mean, yeah, it looks
to an extent.
It's just we're looking at something really small and far away, so it's hard for us to tell. The lighting certainly is different. Like you're much more light, closer to the windows than I am. But our whole situation, the whole setup will be different soon. Excellent, because I have so many questions that seem to keep growing, and I'm good with having questions. Questions are good. I mean, everything, any moment that we're conscious, right, is a moment that we're learning, we're taking in information. That information is not always something that we are then conscious of having that information. And certainly, even when that's the case, it's not always something that we then encode into memory, but it's always learning. And then there are things that we can do that I've been trying to make this point a lot lately, that humans don't have a lot of an ability to influence themselves directly. We have more of an ability to influence things outside of ourselves, and then those things influence us. So if I, for example, want to learn something, the most effective strategy is to do something like asking a question that prompts somebody or something else to then interact with me in a way that helps me learn it.
Right.
Much more effective than being in my mind and trying to be like, now I'm going to learn this thing, right? Anyway.
I'm watching on I was reading. I'm watching on a 45-inch TV. Ooh.
Cool.
Exciting. What were you saying?
It's good to see you. How are you?
You too. I'm doing good. It's amazing what little changes I make that can make things just go smoother. I don't know if you can tell. Maybe I'm noticing it more, but I normally come into work with my hair up and leggings and a t-shirt and my gym shoes, and today I'm wearing jeans, a nicer shirt, shoes, my hair, which this doesn't seem like a big deal, but I always had my hair in a bun, tied in my head, and now I just have it in a ponytail. And it's weird. I almost just feel so much more relaxed and confident just by that.
That's great.
Just by little things. So that's been interesting today. Just kind of been making little changes and tracking the data and seeing how that goes. So that has been good.
Awesome. Good
It's
for
been
you.
lovely. How have you been doing?
Doing all right. Slight video lag, not syncing with audio. We'll have to try and figure that out, but probably not today. Good. Busy. Got a lot to get done. My family and I are traveling for Thanksgiving, so we're leaving on Wednesday. So between today and tomorrow, I got to try and get a lot of stuff taken care of.
You usually travel for the holidays, right?
So we have some friends that live in Iowa that we always spend Thanksgiving with, and whether we go there or they come to us, it's not exactly like every other year we switch off, but we sometimes they come here, sometimes we go there, and they just recently had a baby, so
exciting.
Yeah,
Okay.
very exciting. Yeah, well, good. There was something I was thinking about before. Oh, I was going to say what you're talking about. So my old mentor, his name is Andy Mahoney, and the work that he's like most known for is on identity. And what you're talking about would be part of what he would talk about is like identity formation.
Yeah.
By making deliberate choices around the identity that you're constructing, it's not that it matters so much whether the hair is a ponytail or whatever, as it is that like you made a choice to wear your hair that way.
Right.
And when you do wear your hair that way, then you think of it as it cues you into your work identity or whatever you're trying to establish. That's
interesting because I know this is weird talking about, I never thought my hair would be a topic of conversation with this, but normally when I would be home, I'd have my hair down or like half up, half down, but it was down. And as we're talking, I realized my hair has been in a bun, like just a tight bun from the morning till the night. I only would take it out when I was going to sleep. And so it's so weird, like even just doing this little change now, and then when I was at home yesterday, I put my hair half up, half down, and I just had such a great day and felt more relaxed. It's just something as simple as that. It's weird. It is strange.
It can be weird, certainly, but the way that Andy talks about identity, and while we're talking about this, I'll try and reference him a lot to be clear about like where this is stuff that that I've learned from him and where we're going off on different ideas. That identity is a tool, which I think is a very useful way of looking at identity. That we interact with the environment around us, and we interact with that environment differently based on all different kinds of things. So conceptualizing identity as like a set of, etc., meaning that it's a tool. When I'm in this identity, it's the set of tools that I'm using to interact with this environment in this way. When I'm in this identity, for whatever reason, this context, I'm interacting in this way. So that everyone has like any number of identities.
Right. And I don't know, this is what I wanted to say before when I was trying to make my point, is that I feel like there was a period of time where I was dressing different or implementing tools differently for work, and then come to realize I feel like it's been the same whether I'm at work, whether I'm at home, even if I'm going to my nice dinner is Olive Garden. It's really not that nice, but better than fast food. Anywhere I would go, I was wearing the same stuff. And so now I'm trying to like change up little things too, with like going back to wearing like my lipstick, going back to wearing like a necklace. I haven't worn a necklace in like such a long time. And I think I realized that using them as tools has been beneficial, because I was just dressing and being the same throughout the day, and I wasn't like having my own separate identity, which I think is crucial, at least for me in my work as well.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, what is your difference, like at work versus home, like your tools that you use for like the identity?
Well, I honestly, like, it's worth, if you're interested in this stuff, I would recommend to people to go look him up, Andy Mahoney and identity, because I'm not going to remember all of his language exactly, but he breaks it down into like 4 different components. And I think I might be using this one incorrectly, but I'm not sure. That one of those is called affiliation, that like the extent to which you affiliate with the identity. So when you've created an identity, how much do you think of it as like, that is me, I am that identity, versus how much you're thinking of it as almost like this is some like fake performative thing, which it's still you, right? It's still, you can't say anything you can't say,
right?
But in terms of how you're feeling affiliated with it.
well, hold on, because I don't want to yell.
Go ahead.
No, with the affiliate, what are you?
So what you're talking about, I'm going to use different language because I don't remember his exactly, and I don't want to misuse it and keep getting caveats. What you're talking about right now, these are what I would call like little cues, right? Like these little physical or environmental cues to kind of remind us / automatically get us to engage in a certain way, like enter into it or use a certain identity. It's not the same as what the identity is.
Okay.
Although it's part of it, right? Like if you dress a certain way when you're in a certain context or utilizing a certain identity, then that way of dressing certainly is part of that identity. It's also something that when you do it, it kind of cues your mind, your nervous system, your body into like, we're entering into this mode.
Okay, no, that makes sense.
But certainly I dress differently at work. I don't want to, this conversation can be, I was going to say fraught, tricky, because it overlaps certainly with concepts around like professionalism and professional dress codes and things like that. And I think there's a lot of stuff in that direction that is problematic. I think there's a lot of stuff that's great. And I think there's a lot of stuff that's well-meaning but still can be problematic. So I don't want to give the impression that like there's a way that one should dress in order to be in a certain role or not. Like certainly our therapists here, there's no dress code. And
right, very relaxed.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're wearing t-shirts or hoodies or sweats or whatever. And each person kind of has their own, right? So, but I do think there's utility in dressing differently for your work when you do this kind of work, not therapy specifically, but like intellectual labor.
But you're saying it doesn't matter. Like I know you said not getting to like the dress code, whatever. You're not saying it's catered to the person individually, because there may be people that there were days where I drill up when I was dressing, I guess, more up or better, whatever you want to say. There were days where I would deliberately choose leggings and a t-shirt because I just wanted to relax, and that was helpful for me.
Sure.
In the therapeutic setting.
Yeah. So I guess the point being that like it's not about there's not a right way to dress for different identities or whatever. Obviously there sometimes is, right? Like certain jobs or certain contexts or whatever, there is reason to dress in certain ways. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just having a distinct way of dressing in these distinct identities, so that's part of like how you cue yourself into it. But yeah, I don't dress like this outside of work. In fact, when I get home from work, I almost immediately change into like sweats and a t-shirt or whatever, just relaxing clothes.
As soon as you said that, I'm having too many light bulb moments right now, which I think is also, how do I say this? I always used to, like, after work, like, I would always change into, like, honestly, pajamas. I don't care. Pajamas are, like, something really comfy, sweats and a t-shirt. But because in the last few months, I was wearing leggings and a shirt at work, I would just be home and I would just wear that. And I felt like I was never able to really, like, de-stress from the day because I was just wearing the same stuff. And I felt like I was still carrying whatever stress or whatever with work that I had with me. And it wasn't until, bedtime where then I would change into my pajamas, I guess. But I still felt like I was just, like not being able to just let it go.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that till now. Oops.
Well, I always prefer when I realize something new to be like, oh, nice.
I know, I should.
I can't believe I didn't realize this before,
It's not, I guess, I'm saying oops, I guess, sarcastically. I'm not really thinking that I'm so mad at myself. I'm just like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think, obviously, especially when we're talking about this kind of stuff, not just dress, but like deliberate changes to your environment, there are limitations because that stuff relies on resources, right? But some things, like in executive functioning work with people, to the extent that it's possible, right? I would always prefer that someone has a different place to be sitting and working versus where they're sitting and like hanging out and playing with their friends or whatever, which historically, like a lot of this stuff,
What?
Did the video freeze?
Oh, yeah.
Did the whole thing freeze?
Can anyone hear us, or what's going on with the video or audio? We seem to be frozen.
Dang it. I don't even know when it froze.
I don't know either.
I think we're still live.
Oh, okay. having some difficulties with putting in the new camera. Seemed to have been frozen. Not sure how long that was for.
Somehow it looks like the camera turned off.
Okay.
I mean, if nothing else, we can use an older thing.
Oh,
Okay.
we're back now. Okay, I can still hear you. Okay.
I assumed that having it plugged into the USB would keep it charging as well while it's being used, but maybe I need to like have it plugged in separately to charge while it's also in use. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Where were we
We're
at?
talking about where were we at? Star.
Oh yeah, like
Oh.
historically that's not something that we would have to do deliberately, because like to even have the possibility of where like the physical environment where I'm doing my work and the physical environment where I'm like having fun or whatever, by definition couldn't and wouldn't be the same place. That's something that's really only possible if we're doing our work and having fun on a computer or on a phone, using digital technology. Which is part of the point here, is that like we're always looking at what is the context under which we evolved, right? So yes, we are as a species, like the way we're structured, including our nervous system, which the brain is part of the nervous system. We're structured on like being in different environments all the time, like having different physical environments around us, and that we then like change in response to those changes, theoretically. So now that we are not doing that necessarily as much, not universally, but like for the most part, now that we're doing that not as much inherently, it's helpful to bring some of that in deliberately, to make some choices about like, okay, I'm gonna sit at this desk when I'm doing my work or whatever. I mean, ideally, obviously, again, not something that everyone can do, but if you can have a whole different room to be your office that you work in versus like where you go when you're hanging out and relaxing, that's great.
I mean, there's a reason why I tried working from home a total of 3 times in 4 years, because I don't have an extra bedroom for an office, and it's just too distracting. Even if there's nothing going on, it's just I don't feel like I am at work. Like I'm just so distracted.
Yeah, I don't do it as much these days, but
I thought we were frozen again. We're good.
Especially back in the day, sometimes still, I'll talk to people about like treat your brain like it's a pet, like it's your dog or that you're trying to train, and think about it from those. That like, of course, it's responding to stimuli, environmental stimuli. Since we get to think, and not to say that pets don't, but like we don't get to think for them. We don't get to engage in their cognitive whatever. But with ourselves, we tend to focus on this, like, I'm going to think about stuff and make changes in the cognitive environment. And we don't always pay as much attention to the physical environment, which includes our bodies. Our bodies are like exist physically. That stuff is important, or at least impactful, and that we
froze again.
For real. It must be that the camera is dying.
Should we just switch to the other way you were talking about? Okay.
Let me adjust it real quick.
Why didn't we just do this to begin with?
Well, this is the other camera, the old one that's not as I'm gonna just sing a song while we're delayed.
Sing a song? I don't know if I want to sing a song.
Vamp.
What?
Vamp.
What is that?
Buy us time. Wait, why is that? Okay, never mind. Yep, we're just gonna have this.
Okay.
This wide angle.
That's fine.
That's what we're doing for the rest of today.
What? Conscious care? Haha. Well, you were talking about like taking care of your brain like a pet.
Well, I wasn't talking about taking care of it. I was talking about training it.
Oh, training it.
Right. That like.
At least I think that's what you're referring to from the comment.
So let's talk about clothes again, because that's where we started, and it's a good example. But it's not by any means the only thing, but it's a good example. That when you dress in certain ways, it impacts how you move, how you think, how you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it does that for two different reasons, like categorically. One is something inherent about the way that you're dressed, right? If it's tight in this way or whatever, like that changes your movement.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not necessarily like you can't move that way, like it makes it more optimal or easier or more comfortable to move in different ways.
Mm-hmm. You're still there. Age of the new camera still show its logo, so it wasn't completely off.
Weird. Okay. So try and figure that out.
Yeah, all right.
So there, especially if we're talking about like protective gear or whatever for certain jobs or whatever, then you're gonna like move differently and feel differently and think differently because of inherent things about
Right.
it. The other is this kind of association that we make.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that is made, this is why it's useful to be able to tap into like cultural things, right? That if I want to dress formally or whatever, if I want to engage with the world in a certain kind of formal way, then I'm likely going to start by dressing in the way that is typically considered to be formal in my culture, because I already have associations built with that.
Right.
And just seeing myself in a tuxedo and feeling a tuxedo is going to send cues to me to like engage in a certain way. But we can also then do some conscious construction of this stuff. That if I always wear this bracelet when I'm doing this thing, then over time that bracelet becomes associated with that thing, and it's like a cue that whenever we put on that bracelet, our mind is kind of shifting into like, our whole body is kind of automatically shifting into like, oh, we're engaging in that way.
But see, and I feel like I've said this before, maybe in not this context, but I think I'm going to say two things. One, that's where it gets tricky, because then like if I start dressing more like this and that's like a cue to my body for work, and then I don't dress like that one day, or I forget a bracelet, or I forget a necklace, I don't want that to throw me off.
Well, in theory, at least, it wouldn't be any worse than it would have been otherwise. Meaning, developing an identity, if we're using this term, right? If getting yourself, training your brain and your nervous system to engage in a certain way when you're dressed a certain way, doesn't make it harder to do that when you're dressed in different ways.
Right.
It just makes it easier and more automatic to do it when you're dressed that way.
Yeah.
So if you don't dress that way, then you're missing the supports, basically. Like you don't get that extra boost of how easy and automatic it is to shift, but it doesn't make it any harder to do it than it would have if you hadn't developed that identity.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. No, logically that makes sense, but I think maybe this is what training your brain comes into play, because even though I logically know that, like I'm just not having that extra support that I would have otherwise, I feel like it almost makes it feel like it's, how do I say it? Like it's worse. And not logically, but
I know. So that is a broader thing. All right. Because here's what's true, at least in theory, right? Is that if you do that, if you get used to, you dress a certain way for work every day, and then one day you don't dress that way, then the difference between your normal work experience and that day will be greater than it usually is. So relatively speaking, you'll notice a bigger difference if you're paying attention to that kind of thing. And then emotion is almost all based on like relative experience. Pretty much more, like right now, neither you nor I is sad about the fact that we like can't just fly through the air by wanting to fly through the air with our bodies. We might think that idea is cool or whatever, but we're not actually feeling any like unpleasant emotions about the fact that we can't do it. If, however, every other human could do it, and we're the only one that couldn't, then all of a sudden we're going to feel all kinds of unpleasant emotions, sad or anger or whatever, about the fact that we can't do it. So emotion is mostly relative, right? That also means that as your life gets better, your emotional experience doesn't actually automatically get better. But yeah, if you live in like a tiny, crappy little space or whatever, that like you don't like it, but whatever, it's whatever. You may not love it, but you can live in it. And then after that, you move to a different place that like you love. It's bigger and it's nicer and it's got all this stuff to it and whatever. And you live there for 5 years. Then moving back to that first place, you're going to hate it way more than you did the first time around.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's a relative experience. You've had nicer things and things that you like more. So losing that, kind of the same as like when you don't have a kid, that's that might be not way how you want it to be or whatever, but it's certainly going to be a lot worse if you have a kid for a while and then lose it.
Right.
You know, you're gonna feel the same with a relationship, you know, whatever. So there's that element to it. But I think that is one of those things that's made worse by this larger cultural concept, this way that we talk and think about things of like, um, that we're so focused on the deficit, we're so focused on the loss that there's almost sometimes this like, well, I don't want to get anything that's any better because if I do, then going back to what's worse, meaning what I have right now, would be more unlikable to me.
Yeah.
But that's a cultural thing. We don't have to focus on that part. You know, you can accept that, like, yeah, I just want to make things better or make it more the way I want it to be, even though that increases the chance that, like, if it doesn't follow through or if I lose it later, then I'll be more sad than I am currently.
Why do we always tend to go to that then?
I think, I don't know that I would say we always do, but I think there's some inherent stuff to it because we do, for inherent reasons, we focus on things that are unpleasant or problematic or painful or whatever before stuff that's enjoyable. But mostly in this case, because this is about thinking about stuff in the future, not like an actual unpleasant thing, we're imagining how things might go. Again, there's some reason for us to, when we're like, would this be a good strategy for me to do, or would this be a good thing for when I'm thinking about it? And I want to think through like, well, here's upsides and here's downsides.
Right.
It'd be a problem if I'm like, this sounds great, and I do it, and then something terrible happens. I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't think about that. So we're trying to think through all the problems. But the reason then I think it gets locked in so much, I think that's where the culture stuff comes in, as opposed to like, well, that's a risk, but like, oh yeah, see, not worth trying.
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with our culture teaches that you can only want things to be better if the way they are is bad.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Like if things are good in your life and you want it to be better anyway, then that's bad of you. You're greedy or whatever, lazy, entitled, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, if things are bad enough, then you're allowed to want it to be better.
Right.
And so we have a tendency then to focus on things that make things worse because we are incentivized to be able to say, like, not even to anyone else necessarily, but even to ourselves, like, no, I need to do something about this. I should do something about this instead of just like, I want something to do about this. Yeah, I got to scroll up to that comment. You go ahead and read it.
I feel like I'm going to butcher these words.
Oh, okay.
Can you please?
Also, so I have multiple personalities. I mean, sometimes I do identify as Fritz, sometimes as Ashkenazi, sometimes as Isagia. Pronounced as Isagia, Crow language. Fritz wears whatever he wants. Ashkenazi wears my bull riding cowboy hat. Isagia wears regalia. Worried that I was slipping into personality disorder, not an attempt at humor. And yes, I am sad that I can't fly on demand, so apparently my delusions are okay too. By the way, still a slight lag. It's probably a bandwidth issue or computer limitation. Good to know.
Yeah.
Personality and personality disorder is a whole complicated thing, and that's part of the reason that I'm specifically using the words identity rather than personality. But obviously people, like you're doing there in the comments, but other people too, kind of conflate the two ideas, identity and personality, especially because of like, you know, the thing that used to be known as multiple personality disorder is now known as dissociative identity disorder. And so it's kind of like disorder and disease. It's these things that people know to use one versus the image disappeared.
What is
it's
happening?
Still showing on our side.
But can you still hear us then? Just the images went away? Oh, man. We're going to need to fix this.
Yeah.
That's
a good example of what we're talking about. We did something to try and make it better, and then in an effort to make it better, we created new problems that we haven't resolved and ended up having something be a worse situation today than it was last week. But then we try more things to try and make it better.
But did you do this on purpose? Just to fit what we're talking about?
Rebooted, it was me.
Oh, okay.
So identity and personality, we're using those two things differently for a reason. But the discussion about personality is like a different thing.
Before we get into that, I did have another question from earlier with the clothes thing I didn't want to forget because I said I had two. My other one was when you were talking about I don't know, you said something like the movement of the clothes too, like not being able to like fully. What was that you said?
Yeah, just like you get different sensory cues
Okay.
and whatever. So like if
'Cause-
it's tight and restricted this way, you're less likely
Right.
to move that way.
Because I feel like even with this, like I would always rather wear leggings than jeans. But when I'm wearing my jeans, like my dark jeans to work, I feel more in work mode, but still way more uncomfortable. So it's like kind of like writing that, like choosing like the lesser of two evils. Like what am I?
Well, yes and no.
Because I feel like a lot of my like clothes that I would want to wear to work that make me feel the best are not. They're not comfortable, but they're not as comfortable as I normally would wear.
That's another thing that goes along with what we were talking about earlier on the cultural focus on like bad things.
Mm-hmm.
That comfort is not the only thing to take into consideration with the way that you dress or with anything, right? Which is not to say that it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It does, but like again, we'll use an exaggerated thing of if we're talking about protective wear, you're doing a dangerous job or whatever. You know, if you're scuba diving, then yeah, like your scuba diving, your wetsuit is probably not as comfortable as your relaxing clothes, but that's because it's serving a function there, right?
Right.
Now, again, this overlaps with some problematic concepts that I don't like, and I want to make sure to separate out. But this kind of idea that people will put out there that like, no, you should be more uncomfortable. That's what gets you to be more productive.
Right. I've heard that. Yeah.
Which I would say is a false correlation. That certainly there are things that help a person to be more productive that are also uncomfortable, but it is not the discomfort itself that helps them to be more productive.
Then? Like with my example?
Well, it would depend on the thing, right? Like in this case, it could be that you're more productive or have an easier time because of an identity thing. You're developing a particular identity, and the fact that the clothes are more uncomfortable is just a side effect of the clothes that you chose. But you theoretically could choose clothes that are as comfortable and still get the same impact.
Okay.
Again, that's not always the case because of things, depends on the identity and what we're talking about, right? Like if we're talking about, like earlier I mentioned formal occasions or whatever, where formality has a lot to do with, you know, following certain rules, right? Like a, you know, at a formal dinner, you're using the right fork for the right thing. And it's not to say that that's a good thing, certainly not inherently, but it's what we're talking about when we talk about formality. So having a certain posture, it reads a different way. And therefore having clothes that are more comfortable when you're postured a certain way and less comfortable when you're postured a different way is part of what might cue you to then like have that posture more.
Yeah.
So it's not to say that like, I don't think it's true that like being uncomfortable is always bad and you should avoid it at all costs and only be comfortable. I also don't think it's true that like sometimes it's better to be uncomfortable than comfortable, but I think it is true that sometimes there are things that are beneficial to you and those things also separately happen to be uncomfortable.
I mean, I don't know, my first thought was like, well, that sucks. Like that's great and all, but like, so I just have to feel uncomfortable.
No, that's what I'm saying is it's not the discomfort that is the benefit here. In your case, especially what we're talking about.
No, I know it's not the benefit, but I'm saying regardless if it's the benefit or not, that's still a side effect that I have to.
Well, you could theoretically wear clothes that are comfortable, but are also like I do, right? Like these clothes are comfortable to me. They're also clothes that I only wear at work. That might not be something you currently have in your wardrobe, and that's where like we're always pointing out, getting back to, especially with this stuff, that resources are involved. But yeah, since I've been a therapist, like over the years, there have been times that I'm not a big like clothes shopper as a general like ongoing thing, but every once in a while I'll find, you know, like I was on a trip with my wife and some other couples and people wanted to go shopping. And I found some pants in that store that I was like, oh, these look nice and they're comfy. And then because they were, I ordered the same pants in 2 other colors. Nice. And that's mostly what I wear to work now. So you can wear comfortable clothing to work. The function that we're talking about here is just that it's something you've identified as your work clothing.
Right.
Now, how you think people will perceive you and how you perceive yourself is going to play into that too. I don't want to pretend this thing of like what we're saying is that fashion or the way you dress has nothing to do with how other people perceive you, or, you know, do whatever you want. In some contexts, yeah, do whatever you want. But in other contexts, it is it matters to take into consideration how other people perceive you. Like it or don't like it, it's not an argument that it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a recognition that that is the case, at least sometimes, you know.
Right. I feel like especially with our job too, as therapists.
Well, I mean, with our job, it's not to say that dressing a certain way is the right way to do it or not, but I do agree that, as we've talked about, like I'm very conscious and deliberate in all the choices I make as to how, like everything that's in my office and where it goes. And yes, how I present myself are very conscious and deliberate choices, because what we're doing, you know, the more that we can refine the impact and the messaging that we're doing, the better. Where most places or most jobs, it's not going to matter on that same level of detail.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I specifically would not ever wear a suit and tie to work, because that gives the wrong messaging and has the wrong impact on clients when I'm meeting with them. But I also, and again, not to say that others should do differently, but I also wouldn't wear like a t-shirt or shorts or whatever to work, because that doesn't give the impact that I want to have on clients either.
I feel like you used to wear short sleeves to work.
I do wear short sleeves. I don't wear t-shirts. But I
No, t-shirts. Were you not seeing clients like when you got the
Oh yeah, there
the brewing
was
company shirt?
I would sometimes wear a t-shirt with a cardigan over it. There have been times where I did
subtle
that in the
differences.
past. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I wouldn't like wear flip-flops and shorts and, you know, the ways that I dress outside of work. Or like when it's warm outside, I almost exclusively wear tank tops because I like sweat a lot and stuff. I would never wear a tank top to do a counseling session, unless I had no other choice.
Fair enough.
Which is not the same as saying that that's bad. And other people who do dress that way, that's fine. You know, like I also wouldn't like cut my hair shorter or whatever, and other people do. Like this is not a rule that different people should do it the same way. But it is just generally as therapists or coaches or whatever, the whole point of what we do is how we are coming across to people, how we're getting interpreted by people. That's how we impact people. And so in the same way that someone who's like very focused on mechanical engineering or whatever, like I would expect that they probably put more thought and deliberation into the car that they drive or whatever. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Same deal.
I wanted to, was there another?
No, there was one we didn't read back with the stuff.
Oh.
It was just about not on your side, the video thing. Sometimes others make their problems your problems, which.
I was curious to know what, I think you were starting to say the difference between identity and personality.
Yeah, so.
Doesn't personality just influence identity? Like it's a part of it?
Here's what I think, again, what I'm going to talk about is the way that I think is most useful, / also we'll talk about like the way that people conceptualize it or mean it generally, because as usual, it's like the specific technical definition of these things is not what's important. It's how people use it and conceptualize it and whatever. So the way I think is most useful to start conversations about personality is that personality is not a thing. It's another one of those things that, like a lot of things, like disorders or whatever, very useful to have terminology, concepts, labels that like encapsulate a certain trend or a certain pattern or whatever. But then as we use that more and more, we start to get confused into thinking that the label we've developed is the reason that the thing happens.
So are you also saying, just I want to make sure I'm connecting this, that with this, then identity isn't a thing either? See how
identity is different than personality.
I know, but that's like they both sound like constructs and they're both not.
Oh yeah, they're both constructs, but that's not what I'm not talking about whether it's a construct or not. Like I would say love is a thing, even though that's a construct, right? But when I say personality isn't a thing, that's why I gave that whole caveat, is because what I'm talking about is the way that people generally conceptualize personality. So let's take shy as an example. That's a relatively like, I think people would generally agree that shy is a personality trait. So what happens is a person has a certain pattern of behavior, or they report a certain pattern of thoughts and feelings, stuff that happens on the inside. And if it matches certain criteria, then we'd say like, oh, that person's shy. When they go to meet new people, they were uncomfortable, or at parties, they would rather like be off in the corner by themselves than try to be out in the center of attention, so on. But then people get confused and think that the reason that you do those things is because you're shy.
Mm-hmm.
He's shy, so he doesn't like to meet new people. And that's not real. So that's why I'm focused on the most useful way to start it is to say that the way people think of personality, this idea that there's like some core set of who you are in some way, that you are composed or made up in some way that results in you doing certain things, that's not real. Of course, it is real that people have like patterns of behavior that we can say, oh, they're shy, or they're open to new experience. You know, like the biggest, the most popular, I think, right now, personality model is called the Big Five Factors of Personality, which is openness to new experiences. I don't even remember.
I do not know.
I think adaptability. I don't remember, but there's 5 obviously factors that are the big ones in that model. These things are like, they can be useful. Certainly they're useful for making predictions about how somebody might think or feel or act, whether that's me or someone else. Like if I think of myself as being shy, that helps me to make predictions about how I might think or feel or behave in certain situations, and I can make decisions based on that. Same with if I think you're shy, I can make decisions based on my predictions of how that, so that can be useful. It also can be useful on a large scale, that if we want to do any kind of like large scale studies or analysis stuff, then it's useful to like be able to measure, let's put these people into categories and then track how that matches to other things.
Right.
So that's how personality models usually come about, is that idea that like we start with a theory that like this characteristic, like openness to new experiences, how open someone is to new experiences. We start with a theory that that is something that people vary on. Some people are more open, some less, and that has some notable impact. That people who are more open, you know, the more open you are, that correlates with this, and the less open you are, that correlates with that. And then we study that. You know, we develop some inventories to assess how open people are, and then based on the results of that, we then say like, oh, it looks like people who are more open also tend to, you know, be higher educated or whatever. I don't know if that's an actual one. I'm just making stuff up.
I'm still stuck on how personality is not a thing.
That doesn't mean.
You mean they're not using it, like it's not used how it should be, or people are perceiving personality?
It's not that it's not used how it should be. Is that it's generally considered to be something which isn't real, like which isn't useful, I guess we could say, because it's generally thought of as a cause. Think of the soul, you know, an idea that not everybody believes in, but certainly many people, especially throughout history, have this idea of like, there is some me that is me, that isn't my body, and it isn't my thoughts, and it isn't my feelings. It's some like core essential thing that is me. That when we're talking about personality, oftentimes that's what people are talking about, is like this core essential thing that is me at its essence, this fundamental me. And that like whatever I think and feel and do is impacted by that core me, but I can think and feel and do things that aren't in alignment with that core me, you know, whether you call that being fake or whatever. But I also accept that my awareness of wanting to be liked or caring what others think is okay too. Part of this journey is learning to not only accept, but also like who I am. That frees up resources for more valuable choices. Yeah, I mean, yes, we definitely should, and everyone does, care a lot about how other people perceive us and how we impact them and how they're likely to impact us. That's like very important. I'd say the most important thing to humans is other humans and how we interact with one another. So this idea that anybody should like not care about what other people think, that's the silly thing. You do care about it. Anybody who thinks they shouldn't care what other people think just feels bad about the fact that they do care.
But you're saying that, like, I feel like there's a difference between saying like you don't care people think, because that's not true, and you should care. You think both of those are, you should care people think, and you do.
I do think both of those are true. However, I know that care what people think sometimes is something that people interpret as like should do what people want all the time. And I don't think that you should always do what people want.
But just that it's an impact on you.
Right. But that, yes, like what other people think of you is meaningful. That doesn't mean that I will do anything to make it so that they think of me in some way that I would like. But to do the other thing and pretend like whether or not they like me or what I'm doing has no relevance to anything, that's just as silly.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
It's one variable, one factor that plays into things, and it's a big one. And sometimes, separately in that statement, sometimes we do want to work on changing how much we like what currently exists. Sometimes we want to work on changing what currently exists so that it becomes more like what we like.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that I should like who I am, this is one of those things that comes from or is built on this same personality thing that we're talking about, that there's some fundamental unchangeable element of who I am.
Right.
I will point out that, like, while there's definitely utility and validity in this concept, right? We all, philosophy is often talked about as dualism, that like you humans all have this universal experience of like, I am not exactly my body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am my body is me, whatever, but also there's a me that's not my body. And of course, there's inherent reason that we all have that sense, because like our body does stuff that we're not even aware of. We go to sleep and our body's still doing stuff.
Right.
So we recognize that like whatever me is, the thing we're calling me, is not 100% overlap with my body. So there's reason it makes sense why people are like, I guess there is something there. And more in our culture these days, we're more going to talk about like subconscious or the psyche, but same like underlying principles, soul, personality, whatever. Like, what's the me essence thing that I don't exactly know what it is and can't, but I can tell that it influences like how I do things and how
And
I feel.
do they view it, or people view it as something that's unchangeable? Like no matter what, like that's the core of you, like that's not something that can be changed.
So again, this is a general, not everybody, but generally, yeah, that's the point of personality. Is generally we're saying like, this is your personality type, not this is how you change your personality. But if you want to change and like think and feel and behave differently, sure, that doesn't change your personality. You're just learning how to do that, which is where the concept kind of falls apart. Like, let's say I'm shy. If somehow, some way, something happens, and then for the rest of my life, I no longer do or think or feel the things that are identified as shy, does that mean that like I am now not shy? My personality has changed and I'm no longer shy? Or does that mean that like I've still got a shy personality type, but I've learned how to do these things? And if we're going to say it's different, then why? And this.
But what if you used that then with the word? I don't know why I'm still stuck on this, but if this whole conversation, if you took personality out and put it with identity, like I feel like you could still say the same thing. Like my identity is shy, but now I'm not anymore.
Well, people could use that word that way. That's not how we're using it in this conversation. That's not how I'm suggesting that we use it. I'm talking about Andy Mahoney's way of identity is a tool of expression.
Okay.
Not the word that we're using to reference this like fundamental unknowable me. That identity is just a set of, like, one way I've tried to describe it is if you have white light, that light contains all the colors, all the whole visible spectrum within it. If you put a prism or a lens in front of that light that blocks or reflects certain wavelengths and only then on the other side, red light can come out, or purple light, or blue light, or whatever. That identity is like that lens. That anything that a person says or does or thinks or feels, obviously by definition, is something that person can say or do or think or feel.
Right.
But of all the things that I could say in any given context, I'm only utilizing some subset of those things. So it's about what parts of me am I accessing at any point. That's what the identity is like the parameters around, these are the parts of me that I'm using in this context, and these are the parts of me in this context, and of course they can overlap, and some are completely distinct. But yes, this idea that there is like an unchangeable personality at your core, that you just are the way that you are in some way. If and when I'm ever talking about that with people, I would much prefer, I'll use whatever language people are using, but I think it's much more useful when that person is conceptualizing it as like a soul than as a personality or a subconscious or a psyche, just because of the associations we have with these things and what we can do about them.
Okay. What's the difference then if they were to use soul? How would that be beneficial than using personality?
Because it fully puts this this like unknowable me into the realm of mysterious, where it is like unknowable.
Okay. So
And
nothing that can be fixed.
It's not generally used in this pseudo scientific way, this like what seems logical but is not rational way of saying like that's why I X, Y, or Z. Right? If someone will say like this is my person, I'm an INFP, that's why I blank.
Right.
Where people generally are not like I blank because that's just what my soul is.
Right. That's fair.
Not never, but sometimes. And so I'm not arguing with that concept. How could we even? I'm just saying that taking that and then using it as an answer for why we do stuff mostly gets in the way.
Yeah.
Because mostly we're talking about stuff where it's like, I would rather do this other set of things than this one. So if I then say the reason I do this is because that's just how I am in my personality, whatever, and I can't change my personality, which again, ask anybody, right? Can people change? Can people change their personality? And depending on the context, the same person will say like, no. And then in a different context, they'll be like, yeah, of course.
Right.
You know, there's a general like, people don't change is something that people only say about other people. And even then, not all the time. So it's one of those things that sounds like a useful answer, but it isn't. And that makes it worse. It's much better to have an answer that's like, this is an answer. It's not a useful one. So if we're going to like do stuff, we have to put that to the side. And I don't think it's a coincidence that like Myers-Briggs personality is the most well-known, you know, the INFP, right? And Myers-Briggs, that was developed by a mother-daughter team. I believe Myers was the maiden name, the mother's last name, and the daughter's maiden name, and then Briggs was her married name, but I'm not sure exactly. We're not like psychologists or therapists or anything like that. They just came up with an idea and popularized the idea. They did also write novels. Isabel Myers-Briggs wrote fiction novels, and it's not a coincidence that like very clear and virulent racism is on display in those novels, right? That if we're going to say that there is some essential, no matter what a person does or says or thinks or feels, there's some other element of a person that is a core and unchangeable part of who they are that dictates how they'll do in the future, how they'll respond to different things and so on. Then not necessarily inevitably, but almost inevitably that leads to conclusions about like, well, no matter what you do or say or whatever, you are still this way.
Right.
And some ways are better than other ways. And
sorry, I'm still shocked that I can't believe it was a mother-daughter team. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And there's racism in her books?
One of them was a mystery novel, like a detective who went to the South to investigate a string of apparent suicides in a family that the family thought it was murders because it was like happening one after another, whatever. And eventually the detective finds that what's been happening is that that family, which is like a Southern white family, has mixed ancestry, like black blood in their ancestry. And each person, as they find out, decides to kill themselves to remove that from the gene pool.
God.
And the detective determines not to tell the family because it's just better that they do that.
What?
I haven't read this book. This is based on a synopsis, so it's possible I'm getting this wrong. But
that is okay.
The best way I have heard people sum up personality is it's horoscopes for business types.
That's actually really funny.
What color is your parachute, or your what type Enneagram, whatever. Again, it's not that there's no utility here. There is, but this general idea of like we can separate people into different categories in some way that isn't really changeable, but does explain how they think or feel. This is the exact same thing as horoscopes, but just with a veneer of science on top of it.
Yeah, that is true.
Which I think makes it more dangerous. I don't think there's a problem with horoscopes, right? But if people were to like go to court and in issues of like criminal justice introduce like, well, this person is a Leo and that is evidence that they did a thing, then I'd have a problem with that. And we do that with personality.
Yeah, I didn't even think of it like that.
Personality disorders, which is a whole nother problematic thing here. If we're saying there's such a thing as personality, this core unchangeable piece of you that makes you do and think and feel certain things. And it's also possible that that's like messed up in a bad way.
Right.
And like sucks for you if you just happen to be one of those people that was born with a narcissistic personality and that's just how you are.
Yeah. As you're saying this stuff about like the personality disorders, like I do feel like there is like this, I don't know if taboo, if I'm using that's not the right word. Like there is like this negative thing of like, I don't know, I feel like going to school as a therapist and stuff, I got a lot of messages of like, we can help anyone and everyone, but the people with personality disorders, I don't know. And I'm always like,
Especially
whoa,
borderline personality disorder.
They're in for the other one I heard a lot was antisocial.
Yeah.
Personality disorder.
There is a reason.
Oh, it makes me so mad.
There's a reason that people sometimes refer to including me, sometimes refer to borderline personality disorder as the new hysteria. There's a reason for that. It is utilized. I'm not saying 100% across the board is the same, obviously, but it is often utilized in the same way to ascribe a pseudo-medical diagnosis to why a woman in particular and a young woman in particular might be feeling certain emotions that the people outside of that person are like, well, that's an unreasonable emotion to feel, and they're doing unreasonable things because they're just so emotional. That, like, it's understandable, obviously, that what's been referred to as the core by Marsha Linehan, who's like the founder of DBT, and DBT is the indicated treatment protocol for borderline personality disorder. Marsha Linehan calls the core dilemma of borderline personality disorder is like, I want your help. How dare you try to help me? Right. Basically.
And then also talks about like taking away warmth, right? Like taking away warmth in the therapeutic.
Well, that's.
Am I thinking of something else?
No, you're thinking of DBT. DBT is it's like a particular theory and set of techniques of therapy. And one of those techniques is called withdrawal of warmth, where the therapist or the practitioner, because not all DBT practitioners are therapists, where they do deliberately like withdraw any warmth in the interaction with the client. But
anyways, my bad. I'm in a different place.
It's just, it's understandable why people, especially people whose job it is to help other people, would be like, because this is a thing, right? It definitely happens where I might be working with someone and they're like, please help me. You're the only one who can help me. Please, please, please. And then everything I do, they're also like, you're not helping. That's not helping. Right. Why don't you help me? Whatever. And obviously that's like a frustrating and difficult place to be as the person who's trying to help is like, I swear to God, I'm doing my best to help you. You say you want me to help you, but then you get so angry at me for trying to help you. And of course, the more useful way of thinking about this is like, obviously the way I'm trying to help you isn't working. And we all do that, right? Like everybody, not just there, everybody is like, okay, let me try something else. Let me try something else. But you also hit enough, you've tried enough things where you're like, no, this is getting like, obviously nothing I try is going to work. It's got to be on you now. I have sympathy for that position. I'm not saying that I understand why when people get to that place. This is for everybody, parents, teachers, whatever. Like you try and you try and you know that you try and you know that you care and whatever. And at a certain point, it's just like, I've done literally everything I can think of. This is on them. Like they must not want to X, Y, or Z. Right. And is that true? No. But I certainly understand why people think that. And some of those people are therapists and psychologists and whatever, and can lead to a creation of a whole disorder that's like, you know, those clients who say that they want your help, but then they get mad at you all the time and say you're not helping, even though you're trying. They have a disorder. That's why.
I want to keep talking about this, but I do have to go.
Yeah, we got to go.
I do have sessions. But
as usual, we're talking about things on a level that, like, for the most part in regular life doesn't matter.
Yeah, to me it does.
Well, it does. It does in our work, and it does. You know, like we've said in the past, like usually if someone's like, hey, what kind of gas do you put in your car? Like, does it really matter? But if there's some problem, and then it could be that the problem has something to do with what kind of gas you put in your car. So when that happens, then it's worth getting into more detail. Like, yeah, as long as everything's fine, this stuff is all like, who cares whether personality is a thing or not or whatever. Yeah. But sometimes there are problems that those problems have been caused or at least are contributed to by this way of thinking about personality. So this isn't like cocktail party stuff to go and be like, did you know, whatever. This is just when it's an issue, let's take a step back and check our priors kind of stuff.
No, I appreciate it. It was really good.
Good to be with you all.
Good to be with you all. Thanks for
happy Thanksgiving to the sorry.
God, he's always taking over. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and also thank you for bearing with us with technical difficulties with everything. Hopefully we can get it sorted out.
Yeah, we'll try and get that fixed by next week. I was just gonna say happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.